between the mid-70s and mid-90s, the Polish high-altitude climbers ruled. I mean, they just absolutely dominated in terms of new routes, difficult routes, summits. I mean, in terms of just staying on and waiting and persevering and actually getting to summits when everybody else was going home. Winter climbing in the highest mountains. All of those kinds of things were dominated by the Poles, and yet, with the exception of one or two people who rose sort of to prominence in the Western world, most of those names are relatively unknown, and their stories are unknown. But I think even more important than the climbing achievements, which are incredible, it's the backstory. You know, what they were going through, in addition to doing all that difficult climbing, but in a way which actually almost motivated them to do that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was their ticket to freedom, because after the war, after the Second World War finished in Poland, most of them grew up during that period of time. So of course the country was overrun with soldiers and death and destruction and concentration camps and snipers in the streets. I mean, it was an absolutely horrible time to live there. But it didn't actually get much better afterwards because of the Soviet regime. And so they had no freedom really to do anything. Even though they were educated, they had no jobs to speak of. They had no hope of a career. They had no way of making money. They had to stand in food lines just to get bread. And through climbing, which is something, you know, this group of people love to do, and which they could actually do in their country, they figured out a way to work the system, that is the political system, and actually live lives of great creativity, and they achieved wonderful things. So I think it was for them it was a way for self-fulfillment, really. Well, I guess, you know, there are a lot of things that luckily we don't have to deal with that they did, which is nice. So certainly, I guess one of the things that we can learn is that regardless of what we're dealing with, it's probably not quite as bad as what they had. But a couple of the things that they seem to excel at that continues to apply today is, one is that they had a lot of patience. So they seem to be able to wait for good weather. They were able to wait for safer conditions. They were willing to wait until the time was right. But the other thing is they perfected something that Wojtek Hurtika referred to as the art of suffering. And so in addition to waiting, at least in terms of high altitude climbing, suffering does play a huge role. And so yeah, I guess those two things are fairly important elements in high altitude climbing. The one thing that I think we can learn from them that they didn't do well is that a lot of them sacrificed their lives for their passion, which is probably a lesson that we can learn from not to do. Well, it was a kind of a dream come true, actually, to finally be able to, you know, tell the stories on behalf of a bunch of people who either couldn't tell them or didn't have the opportunity to tell them. It was certainly an honor to be able to work on the book. It's the most enjoyable writing project I've had to this point. You know, it was mostly a positive experience. If there was anything that was really negative about it, it was that I was exposed to kind of a lot of sadness as well, because there were so many people who did die in the mountains. I got to know, you know, their children, their widows and family members, all of whose lives were, you know, affected in quite a sad way. So it was kind of an emotional experience as well.